These are the perfect triple cut chips. In the UK, we invented the triple cut chip. Heston literally invented it. This is something I've made a lot. When we worked at Dinner by Heston, me and Jack, we had to do it on an industrial scale. And a few things have changed since then. We actually found out a better potato to use than the one we used to use. Crucially, I'm going to use beef fat or beef dripping to give them the best flavour you could possibly get. If you wanted to do these at home, patience, a bit of fridge space, you could. You can't make good chips with a potato that has too much starch or too much sugar. This potato variety is called a Gruyere. We use it in most of our videos, you probably noticed. We remove the skin because it's quite essential to get ruffled edges. You need to allow for at least 15% of the potato to come away, and you'll pretty much lose 15% of the spud. That's going to allow for these beautiful little sort of fissures all over your potato. This is not an American or a Belgian frite. In the UK, obviously our national dish, it's pretty much fish and chips. This is very much a chippy chip. A big wedge that definitely doesn't get triple cooked, it just gets chucked in oil. You can see the size of these spuds. You're going to lose all of these edges in the cooking process. You can see as we're washing off these potatoes, starch is starting to come out. Basically, an Gruyere is good because it's got a high amylase content, and amylase contributes to crispness because basically retains the crispiness on the outside and makes it fluffy on the inside. The thing is with starch, too much starch can be a bad thing. So what we're doing at the moment is, why I've got these in water, is I'm trying to remove as much excess as possible. So it's a real fine balance between having a potato with enough starch to get crispy, but also too much, it'll make your fries brown too quickly because there's too much sugar in there. Okay, so once we've done one wash, I'm going to empty this water and I'm going to rinse this until the water runs completely clear. Our water is just simmering now, and what we're going to do is add a good amount of salt to the water, whack these in. With this one, I'm just going to show you how to make about 2 or 3 portions of chips, but the important thing is you leave enough space in the pan so you can move them around a little bit, and that's going to give you the ruffled edges. They've probably had about 6 or 7 minutes. What you can start to see is just really, really lightly, the outside starting to crumble. The most important thing at this stage is just to stir this pan nice and gently over and over again, and just the action of stirring it just makes those edges ruffle together. You're opening the door for oil during the blanching stage and the last crisping stage right the way into the chip. It's been about 18 minutes. We're nearly there, we're getting very close, and they've started to break away, so I'm just going to turn the pan off now. And you can see I'll already lose a few chips, but that's absolutely fine. So now they're just going to sit in the water just to finish cooking all the way through, and whilst they do that, we're just going to slowly turn them around. Our chips have been chilling out in this water now and stirring them every now and then, and this is exactly what we want. Very sort of ruffled little fissures all over the potato. We're super careful taking them out, otherwise they will literally just turn all to mush. Nicely spacing them on the tray. So these then basically completely cooked all the way through. This is exactly what we want. Steam just starts to come out of them. Potato will turn really white colour. These are exactly what we're looking for, these tiny little fissures and crisps and craggy bits. And to be honest, like, you see people throw these bits away, these will be the bits you'll be snacking on at the end because they're by far the nice crispiest bits. So I'm going to whack these in the freezer now just to get cool, and then we can get our pan ready to start frying them. The first fry, we're going to use vegetable oil, and we're going to do it at about 140 degrees, 120, 140 for about 8 minutes. And then the last fry is going to be our beef dripping. It's actually just all of our aged beef fat reduced right down, rendered down. But it's quite important that you don't want to do it completely in beef fat because it's got a lower burning point. So you want to use a mixture of vegetable oil and beef fat just to flavour it. So most nice little delis, most butchers will have either beef fat that you can render, or they will have dripping or lard on site. I think people are kind of waking up to the fact that really processed food like margarine, that's just like homogenized vegetable fat, is actually much worse than just sticking with fat. I'm not saying if you eat triple cut chips every day it's not going to be bad for you, but I do think that people could cook a little bit more in normal animal fats that haven't been processed, and it'd be a good thing. There you go. Look, Grandpa Joe 91. It's not done Grandpa Joe any harm, has it? Look at those chips. Ours are going to be better than that though, Grandpa Joe. I've not exactly frozen them. I've chilled them down until they're cold. They're probably in there for about 10 minutes in the freezer, but you can just whack them into your fridge or something like that. Just lightly ruffling up some of the sides. and then they're ready to go into the pan for the next stage. These little fissures here are going to open up and the oil gets inside, crisps them up from the inside in, and that's what's going to make the perfect chip. So our oil's at about 140. We're going to add our chips in, being really careful with them. No, you want a really gentle heat at this stage. It's really important not to crowd the pan. You actually want them to be really gently. They're all, I mean, almost confident, but they're not. They're, you know, sort of very slowly frying at this temperature. And then the only thing we're going to do is probably just stir them as soon as they've got that initial sort of skin from the fryer oil. Then we'll look at stirring the potatoes. Yeah, once they've had the first fry, they're not as delicate anymore, so you can handle them a little bit differently. So if you were using a deep fat fryer, you wouldn't need to worry about this, but if you use a heavy bottom pan, it's really important that you just, every now and then, just be careful that you've not got any potatoes sticking to the bottom of the pan. So I've just gently lifted it up. They're still really delicate and they're just ticking away really nice and slow. Probably got another 5 minutes like this, about 8 to 10 minutes in total, until they're nicely blanched. Just because we have a lot of comments about this, blanching technically is when you do it in water, but when we cook something in oil, like before it's cooked for service, we tend to say blanching for that as well. I don't know if it's just an English thing or a French thing or something I picked up it's wrong, but that's just what we do. Okay, so this is our first blanch over. So this is what we're looking for. You don't want them to have lots of colour, but all those little crispy bits have all started to get really nice and jaggedy. So that has been about 12 minutes actually, so a little bit longer, maybe because of the size of the pan. And all of those little bits have broken away around the outside. So like even on the slightly bigger chips, you've got this layer of like crack and fissure all over the outside of the potato. There's so many little cracks, and as soon as we get this oil nice and hot, that's how we know we're gonna have the perfect chip. So these are gonna go back into the freezer till they're completely cool, and then they're ready to fry. We've got our oil here, which was roughly about 800 milliliters of oil. And what we're gonna do is just place our stunning beef fat into that oil. Probably if you've got 800 grams, we're looking to put about 200 grams of beef fat in there. So 1:4 ratio of beef fat to oil. Just a really, really rich, decadent way of doing chips. Our chips have chilled down completely, so that's a really important stage. That's obviously the difference between these chips and just making standard chips. Normally you would just serve them after having boiled them, but now these are cold again, and you can see all these little ridges. All that steam has evaporated again, so it's gonna further make the outside really, really crispy. The benefit of having them so thick is the fact that the inside is still really nice and fluffy. So our oil's really nice and warm now. It's probably on about 180 degrees. Drop our chips back in. The last fry will be about 4 to 5 minutes. Oh, look at those golden beauties. That's exactly what we want. So just keep moving around at this stage. Don't want them to get too hot on the bottom of the pan. If you're using a deep fat fryer, it's not necessary at all to keep moving around. So it's been about 4 minutes. Just gonna leave those just a tad longer just to get even crispier. And then importantly, the best type of salt to get in all those nooks and crannies that you've spent all that time building is fine salt, because large flaky salt cannot get inside the chip. And yeah, it's always best to season things when they're hot. Definitely gonna get the best results, and you get the seasoning to stick to them. That's it, that is the perfect chip. This is what you're looking for. That is perfectly broken up. Still got its shape and structure, but you can see all these little ridges and cracks. Don't forget all these little bits as well. We used to throw these away at the previous place I worked, but that is by far, for me, that's the best bit. A little mountain of chips. And this is Tommy K.